Hello, welcome to Yale and Hollywood Fest 2024. This is our fifth global streaming edition, and I'm here with the filmmaker of Midas, our opening feature, TJ Noel-Sullivan, who actually won the Best Dramatic Short Film for his short film On the Whistle in our first edition, 2020. So welcome, Noel. Welcome,
Thank
TJ. Oh
you.
my God.
Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, so I mean, I'd just love to chat a little bit about just, how did Midas happen? Because I knew that you won in 2020 and there was a lot of interest on your short film On the Whistle and you end up making Midas. And how did this your first feature happen?
Sure, yeah. So I had Midas in 2020, which I was really grateful for festivals like Yale and Hollywood that were online because a lot of the festivals that I was really excited about got either completely closed because of COVID or like pivoted at the last second to online, but weren't necessarily the same thing. But did get some interest and buzz out of the short. And I had a feature script lined up for it that I really wanted to make, and had some buzz. Signed a option agreement on the feature script and was shopping it around. And the feedback essentially was, at the time, I think I was 22. Like nobody's gonna give. The budget estimates were on the low end, like $3 million to make the feature, and on the high end, like $15 million. And I think the general consensus was like, even if we like the script a lot, nobody's going to give a 22-year-old that kind of money to make his first feature. And so I kind of went back to the drawing board. Actually, like around the time of Yale in Hollywood, like just not soon after, started thinking about, okay, well, what's a feature that I can do that doesn't require me to rent out a 20,000 person stadium and pack it with extras for the final climax scenes and things like that. Um, and so I'm thinking about that. I came up with this idea for Midas. I had always had this idea for a heist film that turned into something more. Am I allowed to give spoilers in this conversation?
Allowed to use what?
Give spoilers? Can I give spoilers?
Absolutely. Why not?
Okay. Sure. Well, so the Midas, the two-thirds of the way through, I had this idea for what it's a heist film. I loved heist films. I grew up on Ocean's 11. What if there's a heist film that two-thirds of the way through they decide like it's not about the money anymore, it's about this bigger thing that they've uncovered. And so in the very first draft, actually, which I wrote while at Yale, the very, very first draft of this, they were going to rob a tech company.
Mm.
Um, and then two-thirds of the way through the movie, we're going to discover something about the tech company, and everything changes. And so I had this idea kind of floating around. I was going back to the drawing board. Okay, what other ideas do I have that wouldn't cost $3 million to make? Um, and pulled this, dusted it off. And what really clicked for me actually was I was still in touch with a Yale professor of mine, John Andrews, who had been so, helpful in my filmmaking journey. And I talked to him about the script, and I said, I think I maybe want to shoot this as my first feature, and I maybe want to shoot it in Hartford. And he said, well, why are you shooting it in Hartford? And I kind of said, okay, well, I think I can have this community support, and there's a lot of reasons that will make it more easy or more feasible in Hartford. And he said, okay, that's why you're shooting in Hartford, but why is it going to be set in Hartford? And that's what clicked for me. I said, oh, Hartford is known as the health insurance capital of the world. Something like 40% of our residents are employed by a major health insurer. And so let's make it about a health, instead of a tech company, they'll rob a health insurance company. And that's what really clicked for me. And from there, it was kind of off to races. Obviously, off to the races is still a year and a half worth of development and raising the money to finally get to go shoot it in summer of 2022, and then a whole year of post, and then selling the film. But yeah, that was the journey, and was really grateful and excited to be able to actually make the first feature because, yeah, at times along the way, I definitely did not think it was going to be possible, but it all worked out in the end.
I mean, it's oddly very timely because considering that the assassination of the CEO of United Health, right? And there's definitely, I think that it's definitely tapping into this cultural zeitgeist in something. And I just want to also ask, seems like you have a big connection with Hartford. Did you grow up there? And then what is the filmmaking scene like there?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised here in Hartford. And I think one of the things for me, so Hartford in my lifetime even has kind of gone through different waves of, um, in 2006, the state launched this big film tax incentive program and also a training program. And we brought in a lot of cool projects, and there were some cool things happening in the area. And then, while I was in college, things had seemed to kind of die down a little bit more. But I was really, enticed by this idea of telling local stories, as I kind of think about the kind of stories I want to tell. I think about the stories. I grew up going to the movie theater on a Friday night with friends. Um, and I think about, we watched a lot of really bad movies, but we also would watch some movies that were really entertaining and, popcorn flicks, but also had something more to say. And those are the movies that I really value. And so for me, that's what the needle I was trying to thread with Midas was, can I make a movie that, a group of 16-year-olds will enjoy watching on a Friday night at the local movie theater, but also they'll walk out and maybe have something to chew on or something to talk about in the parking lot. Um, and, I think I've been really grateful that Hartford definitely, when we shot this, I think we were the third feature in the last couple of years to have shot, and it's starting to pick up more and more. So there's a TV show shooting here in the area right now that we're helping on and doing more. And I think also coming out of COVID, it's more possible to shoot in places like Hartford because you don't have, we're 2 hours from New York and yet also kind of have our own filmmaking identity, it feels like.
And is there what are the type of tax incentives at Hartford? Did you get any? I was just
Yeah,
curious.
yeah. So there's the Connecticut Film Tax Credit, which gives up to 30% as a tax credit, and can always be improved. And,
Mm.
went to
And
the
is
state
there like
capitol.
a flaw for it? Like you have to spend like, up to what, 100,000 or a million?
Yeah, you have to spend a minimum of 100,000
Okay.
to be eligible, and then there's kind of tiers of 100,000 to 500,000, 500,000 to a million and over. Um,
So basically 100,000, 30%, and on eligible expenses, which means you have to hire Connecticut or Hartford crew and cast on that.
so, um, so it's at 100,000, it's 10%. You do not actually have to hire local crew. We really made an effort to hire local crew. I was kind of a big believer, and this is what I'm hoping is going to be the first of many features that I shoot in the area. And so build the local crew base, build the connections. And I had some connections. I've done some commercial work and so had some existing connections. Actually, my cinematographer from On the Whistle came back to shoot Midas. Um, and so there definitely were existing connections. But yeah, I do actually think that the Connecticut tax credit should have a local hire requirement. It does not at the moment.
So it's
But
just a spend requirement. Whatever that you spend on the budget, you get back 10%.
anything you spend in state, yep. So if you hire somebody from out of state, but you pay them on a Connecticut tax payroll,
Okay.
then they count as an in-state hire.
Fantastic. Well, think about it because it's funny because I was working in Czech. This is totally digressing, but I was working in Czechoslovakia and then they, again, as the tax credit was 20%. And I was like, why am I getting tax credits? I'm not even Czech. Anyways, I
If
want to move
anybody
on
wants
just
to come shoot a movie in Hartford, I'm happy to walk you
yeah,
through the
absolutely. That's
town.
anyways, yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about like what so after you made this film as your first feature, and I'm sure you've learned a lot of great things, but what is this one kind of important lesson that you have learned from the production? Kind of thinking like what is this, what really,
Yeah, I mean, I think my absolute biggest takeaway was that the team, especially on a first feature, the team is so important. And when I say team, I put that in so many different ways. So, on the first hand, I need to shout out my producer, Christina Cuello, who is a Yale 2020 with me, and was the very first person on this project. She was the first person who got the script and was on this project for 4 years, and, helping give me notes. And I think, again, that's in the development phase. I look back and having that person, attached as a creative producer, but with no real incentive in sight, just kind of like doing it because they believe in the project. That's what gets you from first draft of the script to shooting draft of the script, I think. And then once you're putting your team together, our crew, we're the kind of crew that just had a really positive energy. We're excited. One of the things, and I was really involved actually with all of our crew interviews. I really said before we hire anybody, I want to, even if it's a 5-minute phone conversation, I want to have the opportunity to talk to them. And one of my key pieces in that was I wanted a crew who I felt like I was a young director. I did not want the energy of, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years. Don't tell me what to do. Like I know what I'm doing. I got a better idea than this. I wanted people who were going to collaborate. And I think I really enjoyed that of we had a crew who like would be huddled around Video Village with me and like had ideas, wanted to collaborate, but brought in the right energy. And I think that's really important. And also our cast, I think our cast were really excited about the project, brought a hunger to the project, brought a willingness to trust me and try things. And I've said that to other people that are kind of making their first features because I do think there's often a question of, should you try and cast up and should you shell out a lot of money to try and get a big name actor? And there are obviously benefits to that. I think in the distribution stage and other stages that there would have been times when that would have been helpful. But for me, as a first time feature director, having a cast who wanted to make the best movie, who were not, giving me, oh, well, I'm gonna go hang out in my trailer for a little bit. Call me when you need me. They were like, "Hey, I'm here. What can I do to help? You want me to read lines off camera to get a better scene? I'm happy to do that." And so that kind of thing I think is really helpful.
And what is your casting process? Did you cast all local cast, or did you have a casting director to actually go through the
So
kind of.
yeah, we cast internally, which was a daunting challenge, but when making a scrappy indie film, every dollar counts. And so for us, we're like, we have the time. And so we did a nationwide casting search. We went, through Actors Access and Backstage and really posted it wide. And we got in over 5,000 self-tape auditions for the 5 lead roles. Um, and I watched all 5,000 self-tape auditions. Um, and honestly, I find watching self-tape auditions as one of my favorite things to do. Like it's so much fun for me. A, because it's characters that I've written like coming to life and I get to see characters in new ways and see how people sometimes like take a character in a direction I did not at all think it was going to go. There's also just some funny ones like the ones that got to me. There was one guy who recorded his self-tape audition on the plane while in flight. He submitted it like a week early, so I was like, you could have just, but no, he was like on the plane with his phone out, like recording his self-tape audition. There were a bunch of really funny ones, but
Did
went
that
through those.
impress you, or you were thinking it was just
Oh no, I
amusing?
was it was not. I mean, he was like in air, and it was hard to hear him. It was definitely, I would not recommend that. Um, but in the end, took those 5,000, whittled it down to I think about like 20 or 30 for each role that we brought in for callbacks. So we did virtual because we were spread out all over the country and COVID was still a thing. So we did Zoom callbacks where I had the opportunity to, give some more direction, get a feel for characters. And then I think we basically took our top 2 or 3 of each and did some chemistry reads. And that was really when I said, okay, yep, the 3 best friends, like they jumped on that Zoom, they immediately felt like best friends. It worked for me. Um, and Claire and her dad, obviously, Lucy was somebody actually. Lucy, I had an existing relationship. She was in the
Mhm.
very first ever Yale and Hollywood Film Fest with me. And I knew her from college as
And she
well.
also won. She won twice, I think.
Yeah. Um, and so Lucy was somebody who I had immense, respect for her acting talent. And so she actually participated in a table read of the script like a year before we actually went into production. An early
Mm.
table read she read for Claire, and I thought she was really great. And so I think I said, you don't have to submit a self-tape audition. Like your table read was your self-tape audition, but I want to bring you in for callbacks. So we brought her in for callbacks and brought her in for chemistry reads, and she just nailed it. And she actually had a local connection. While she's no longer local to the area, she grew up in the area. And so that was also cool to kind of bring her back to her hometown.
Yeah, one thing I also really appreciate is that being a person of color is that you have a really interesting way of casting diverse. And when you were casting, did you already think, okay, I'm going to cast this person black or I'm going to cast this person South Asian? What were you thinking? And you know,
Yeah, so um it was one of the so I'm from Hartford, born and raised here, and one of the really interesting things about Hartford is an incredibly diverse city. And more than just like being diverse, there was a court case the year I was born called Sheff versus O'Neill that required our public schools to be mixed diversely so that this for my entire schooling, every school I went to was required by state law to be 35% black, 35% Hispanic, 25%
Mhm.
white, 5% Asian. And so I like when I think about Hartford, when I think about, hey, I'm going to create a cast of, four lead characters who are all grew up in the same area, like my brain instinctively goes to they are going to have that diversity. But interestingly, we did not totally lock in um, exact races. So I
Mhm.
think we kind of opened it up as an open call, and then it so happened that uh, we had a beautiful amount of diversity. Um, but even like into the final chemistry read stages, we had, I think, a version of the chemistry reads that would have been all black, or we had a version of the chemistry reads where Ricky would have been Hispanic and
Mhm.
Victor would have been Hispanic. And then the one of the fun things, this is the first time I'd done this, but I really enjoyed it, was we in that process, in the casting process specifically, used very, I guess, racially neutral names because we didn't want to discourage people, right? If you see a name
Mhm.
that you don't feel like you can be, you're not gonna, submit a self tape. And so when we cast our lead actors, Preet Kaur, who plays Sunita, one of my first conversations with her was like, "Hey, here's the full script. Read the full script." Um, I think the character's name was like written as just Brianna. We're gonna rename Brianna. Like, let's have a call to talk about and decide what we want to rename Brianna. And Sunita is Punjabi, which is
Mhm.
Priya is Punjabi, and it is Punjabi for um, kind of obedient daughter, I think is maybe the direct translation. And so we kind of were like, that's fun because if your parents name you obedient daughter and then like there maybe gives you the little bit of rebel energy that leads you to down this path and to committing a heist. And so it was kind of part of our character development with the actors was like, okay, let's talk about your name. Let's talk about how your name shaped who you are as a character. And so that was the first time that, we changed names like literally the draft right before the shooting script. That was like one of the last changes. I think my first AD was a little upset with me. He was like, suddenly I don't know any of the characters' names because I've been reading this script and 2 weeks before shooting, you changed all their names. But it was really fun.
I think I really respect that because I think that in Hollywood for a long time, until probably recently, that I just know a lot of actors go to audition and there's all these open ethnic roles on the breakdown, but they all know they say open ethnic, they're really looking for a Caucasian person, right? And so it's sort of and every time they see open ethnic, basically it discourages them from applying, unless it's say, oh, it's Asian American or African American. So I think you are doing exactly the right thing that what Hollywood should be doing, and I think they're doing it now. I also want to kind of like ask about like because there's something very kind of seems like there's definitely a strong thematic connection between like on the whistle to Midas, and I just want to see like what motivates you as kind of like a filmmaker, the kind of stories you want to tell, because I think in both I there is like a thematic connection that I'm not really I want to see what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to be totally honest, I think with both On the Whistle and Midas, some of the thematic backbone really came from some of the questions and topics I was really grappling with. And so for Midas, that was uh, one of the inklings of ideas came from I was graduating from college and graduating from Yale, and the most common topic of conversation was follow the money or follow your heart. And that I think is the kind of relationship between Ricky and Claire. right? I had a lot of friends who said, "Hey, I'm going to go work on Wall Street. I'm going to go work for a consulting firm because the signing bonus and the upfront paycheck is an amount of money that my family's never had before and is a life-changing amount of money." And a lot of Yaleys who come from money are in the position to say, I'm going to go work for a nonprofit. I'm going to go work for a political campaign. I'm going to go work in the arts, right? Like the things that are not as guaranteed money, but maybe are more fulfilling in some ways. Um, and I just saw so many of those conversations and saw people having, you know, people who'd been friends for 4 years reaching this path where one friend would go, I can't believe you'd sell out and go work there. And then the other person would be like, I can't believe you don't understand where I'm coming from and why the money's so important here. And so that was a key piece that, both in the heist, right? Like I think we imagine that, and a lot of people, myself included, graduated imagining this perfect world where we could go, we can do both. We can make a lot of money and be fulfilled. And for Ricky's case, it's, I can steal the money, but it's a victimless crime and nobody gets hurt. And then when the rubber meets the road and, you have to make a decision. And for Ricky, it's, do you keep the money or do you uncover what's happening at this health insurance company and reveal what's happening at this health insurance company? That's when, who we are as people really comes out.
Mhm. Wow. Anyways, I also really like the in joke about the whole why he's kind of like faking to be a Harvard student. And obviously you wouldn't put it, it's like he's faking to be a Yale student. So
He was
anyway.
taking to be a Yale student, they would have figured it out right away.
Yeah,
But
so I
Harvard,
haven't. I wrote another script and that was very similar. I haven't read it for so long, and it's like, and then at first I thought, oh, maybe I should change that back to Yale. I said, no, 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 it's meant to be like not a Yale school.
I'll be honest, one of the other reasons that I really wanted to make him a fake Harvard student is so that I could use my one F-bomb on fuck Harvard. That's
Okay,
that's the one F-bomb in the script, and it's such a casual one. She sneezes it, so some people miss it. But yeah.
that's funny. So now that you've made your first feature, right? And what would be a one advice that you would give to somebody who wanted to make the first short film or the first feature? Like, what is,
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm such a big believer in do it, do it, do it. So for on the short film piece, my advice is write it, revise it, get notes on it, and then go shoot it. And like, don't wait for it to be perfect. I know too many people that have said, oh, well, I need to raise, so much money in order to do my first short, or I need to get it totally, totally perfect. You learn so many mistakes along the way. And, for me, it was doing dozens of short films where I learned a new mistake on every short film. And then on the feature side is a really interesting one. It was something that I grappled with as I was tackling this. Am I ready to shoot my first feature? Should I go shoot another short and keep learning? Um, and I think that comes from your team, like having the people you trust around you who go, yeah, you are ready as a director. This script is ready. You should go shoot this. Um, and then, on the feature side, um, it is being willing to rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. One of the things that I'm actually really grateful for is I had a draft of this script in the summer of 2021 that I was like, I think this is ready. We should go shoot this. And I was like actually trying to put the pieces together to shoot it. Um, and I met a producer, Kevin McKeown, who uh, said, "Hey, like I like this idea, but A, you're still really young, and B, you don't really understand the industry of it all. You've never spent a significant amount of time out in LA. You don't understand that whole piece." And he actually offered me a job to come work for him at Mattel Films, which was a really cool opportunity. And I took that and spent a year out there,
Mm.
both learning more about the industry, getting to, network and understand really what distribution was and who was going to see this movie when it was done and all those things. But also in doing that, I had a whole nother year of revising the script. And when I look at, the version of the script that I thought was ready to shoot in July 2021 and the version that we actually shot a year later, there were so many improvements. And so I think it's hard to figure out like, hey, when is this actually ready to go? And you have to oftentimes rely on your team, and you also have to kind of rely on your gut of like, is this the right time to go do this, or does it need more revisions? Does it need another round of notes?
So it seems to me that what you're saying is that that 1 year you really spend it to develop your script, and it's really worthwhile because um, I'm a super kind of like, impatient person, so I want to shoot my feature as soon as it's written. But obviously, the best thing is always to having some industry experience, right? And I think that I think it's a really a great advice to say that, hey, you know what, you should really work in the industry for like maybe a year or something, and while you kind of workshop your feature and then come back and make it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the industry work, not only did I learned a lot on the back end. So, um, in working for Kevin, there was a feature called Call Jane, which went to Sundance while I was working for him, and so I got to see the whole back end side of going to festivals, selling to a distributor, delivering, right? All the probably the most valuable lesson I learned in that year was I got to see the back end of delivering to your distributor and all the mistakes that could potentially be made. And so people kind of thought I was weird on Midas. Like, even though I was directing, I was like, here is the checklist of all the things we need so that when it comes time to deliver this film, we are good and we have all the contracts we need. We have chain of title, we have everything. So yeah, there were so many things both creatively that I learned, but also from a logistics standpoint. And spending that year, being in the industry, you meet so many people who are also writers or who are producers and are willing to read it and give notes. And so I think maybe in the first, initial period, I only had like three or four people who I really trusted and were giving notes, and I think were really important in nurturing this idea into a, viable script option. But then a full year of sending to a bunch of people, having them rip it to shreds. People who had no connection to me, who I had met at a party on the weekend before, reading the script, tearing it to shreds, giving me the harsh realities that I needed about characters or what scenes weren't working and that kind of thing. I think that was really important.
Mhm. And what are you working on next?
Yeah, good question. So I've got a couple things. At the moment, the thing that I'm most excited about is I'm writing a pilot for a series that is based off of An Enemy of the People, Henrik Ibsen's version of An Enemy of the People, but with a kind of uh, very modern of the moment regarding AI and new technologies adaptation. And so I would love the opportunity to do that. And then I have a kind of sitting as a draft that after I'm done writing this pilot, probably go back to and polish. I have a fugitive feature that I've also written. So I think probably one of those two will be next. We'll kind of see where the wind blows and what is, of interest to the powers that be. But excited to do the next thing. And in the meantime, have been able to stay really busy, kind of helping to produce other projects. So there's this TV show shooting in the area that we jumped onto. And there's kind of been a steady wave of projects in the Hartford area. And because we were one of the first ones, have kind of gained a reputation of, oh yeah, we know the ins and outs of producing in the area. So I've been able to build that up, which has been a lot of fun.
I know I should have asked this last question from the beginning, but how was it funded? How did you kind of fund the, Midas kind of thing?
Yeah. So uh, for this, we kind of looked at a lot of different options, and we're exploring the version of, go out and attach a cast member and actually had some money that was interested of, hey, if you can attach a cast member, we have some money here, and um, in the end, the option that was on the table and kind of allowed us to do what we wanted to do was locally in the Hartford area, which Hartford, obviously, there is a lot of money. There's people from the insurance industry who have made quite a bit of money. We kind of put together a pitch for them on, hey, this is a movie that's going to showcase Hartford on the big screen. There really hasn't been much of this. Here's the hometown story. And we had like a kind of investors deck that specifically played to the
Mm.
Hartford aspects of the film. And we're lucky enough to have investors who said, yeah, we like this story. We believe in you, TJ. And so through that was able to raise the money to shoot it, and then had to find some finishing funds. And as indie filmmaking goes, it takes a village, but was really lucky to have that. And I think I maybe brushed over it too lightly. I have to say, shooting in Hartford and being able to leverage some of my local connections was so valuable. So we didn't pay for a location. We had one scene with 200 extras where we kind of just put the word out and had overnight 200 people sign up and
Mm.
volunteer there Tuesday afternoon to come be extras in the film. So yeah, there was a lot that kind of banked off of the goodwill of people. We had meals donated from local restaurants or local vendors who just heard about the movie and said, "Hey, we want to help." So there was a lot of community investment in the project as well.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations. And yeah, I look forward to seeing your next movie or TV series. So.